wanttoberecycled.org. A public service advertisement brought to you by Keep America Beautiful and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to The Brighter Side. I am your host, Sarah Albertson. Our guest today is former Nassau Community College student Kim Keane. Kim, welcome back.
Thank you.
I understand right before the break we were talking about how you've been diagnosed with diabetes, you went through some struggles, and that you also lost your dad, all pretty much back to back in a very short period of time. But I also understand that you went through Hurricane Sandy. Would you like to talk about that?
Actually, at the time of Hurricane Sandy, I was living in Rockaway. It was about a year after everything had happened. It was around the time of my birthday, actually, which is pretty strange. We had my Sweet 16 party, and then we heard an announcement on the news the next morning. Zone A has to be evacuated because of this massive hurricane coming in. And one of my mom's friends turned to her and said, "You guys are leaving, right?" And my mom said, "Yeah." So we had to go home after brunch, pack everything up, came out to Long Island, well, Floral Park specifically, stayed with a family friend for a couple of weeks, and we went back to see what damage had been done, and there was a ton of damage. Everyone thought that because of Hurricane Irene the year before, nothing was going to happen, and everybody turned around now after Hurricane Sandy and saw flooding damage and buildings that were burned down and all this crazy stuff, cars being totaled, power lines being out. And it was this really crazy thing. Never thought I'd see it in my lifetime, actually.
So how did you guys manage to clean up? How was your reaction, honestly, just looking at it?
At first, it was like, did this really happen, or is this just imagination? Luckily, we were living in a house that had a basement that was partial underground and the partial above ground. So there was about 10 feet between the street or the sidewalk and the actual main level of the house that we were in. So luckily, only what was in the basement got actually damaged. Besides that, I think one of the windows in one of the bedrooms broke, but we didn't see any glass, so we think it shattered outward. We had a lot of books down in the basement. Some of my school uniform and some of my brother's school uniform was messed up. Nothing really important was messed up, but it was crazy. Everything looked like the shipwreck of the Titanic when they pulled up the safe and they opened it and all that murky water comes out of it. It was pretty interesting.
So I understand that sometime afterwards you made the transition and you moved permanently to Floral Park.
We did, yes. It was crazy trying to get two teenagers from Long Island into Brooklyn for school every day. I was the first one to make the transition. I said to my mom, "This is crazy. I can't wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to school till 3 o'clock in the afternoon and be okay with doing this." So I said, "You know what, let me transfer." And I transferred, and I think it was one of the best experiences of my life so far.
How was just overall transitioning from living in the Rockaways to living in Floral Park?
The transition from living in Rockaway and Floral Park wasn't too extreme. They're both small towns. You can walk everywhere. There's a bus to go anywhere. The only difference is there's no beach in Floral Park. But it wasn't that bad. I would come out here to visit my grandparents and some of my mom's friends, so it wasn't that much of a transition, really. It was just trying to say, okay, you're not going home in Rockaway, you're going home in Floral Park.
So when you started at your new high school instead of traveling to the Rockaways every day, how did that transition work, and what was your first feeling when you walked into that new building?
It was interesting. I had been going from an all-girls Catholic high school to a public high school in a small town with 2 floors instead of 4 floors, and there's lockers pretty much everywhere, and everything is scattered, but some of the classes like stuck together. Like some of the social studies were in one area and some of the English were in one area. I didn't know anybody, and actually during lunch, one of the teachers, Miss Hordern, she came up to me and she brought me over to some people because she knew I was lost and she knew I was new. And she was crazy, but she tried to make my transition a little bit smoother.
What advice would you give somebody who has to start at a new school?
It's not as bad as you might think it is. Just be yourself and everything else kind of follows.
How long did it take you to adjust to the school?
Actually, it was a little bit easier because I had met some people on my first day. If I hadn't have met them, it would have taken me like 2 months instead of 1 month to adjust.
Were you scared or nervous entering this new school?
I was more nervous at the fact that there were guys than anything else. I mean, I've been in a all-girls school for 3 years, so it was a little nerve-wracking, I guess.
So would you say that all the stuff that you have been through in your life, the good and the bad, specifically bad meaning, like, even though you got diagnosed with diabetes, even though you lost a loved one and you had to kind of start your whole new chapter in Fall Park, would you say that all helped shape you into the person you are today in a positive way?
It definitely has, and I'm grateful for moving out here and transferring schools. If I didn't, I wouldn't have met the amazing people that I have in my life right now. I'm definitely grateful for them, and they're crazy. They're really super crazy, but I love them all like my own family, so it's all good.
So, being diabetic and starting at a new school, did anybody judge you? Did you feel weird having to, be the new kid and go down to the nurse's office or just, do the insulin in the cafeteria? Did you experience any of that?
Well, the nurse was actually very helpful. She became like my best friend at the beginning. I would go to her every afternoon during lunch and see her for a couple minutes, do everything in there, and then go to lunch. Someone did judge me at that school, and...
Well, wait, how did you deal with the judgment?
I kind of didn't... It was during a school trip, and I had told one of my friends that did not go on the trip about it. She told me I had to go to one of the assistant principals and talk to them about it, and I did, and there was text messages involved, and I showed them all to the assistant principal, and she said it was the school's responsibility because it happened during a school trip. Even though we were home, but the school technically still had custody over us at the time. So school pretty much took care of it.
What is your advice for somebody who needs to stand up for themselves?
You gotta do what you need to do. If somebody's being mean to you, if somebody's not accepting of you, you need to educate them of what's going on. And if they still don't accept it, and things get worse, then you need to go and turn to somebody else to help you out. Otherwise, it's not going to stop, and it's just going to keep going. It's going to make things worse.
So you don't regret any of the times that you stood up for yourself?
Oh, no. No. I'm glad I did, because, that person's not in my life anymore, and I'm grateful for that. But they helped me become who I am, so it's not... I don't regret it at all.
So would you say that we need to do more to educate people on diabetes?
I think some people do need more education than others. There are definitely some ignorant people that are still out there. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself and try to educate somebody. But if they're going to blow you off, don't worry about it. Just let it go.
So you're pretty much saying that some are going to be more understanding than others.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
When you were first diagnosed being diabetic, it's hard to, I think, carry that label. So does it bother you when somebody says that you're diabetic, Or, like, do you take offense to it? Because I know everybody's so different about it and everybody's so sensitive in different ways. Like, how did you adjust to having that new label?
Well, what helped was a family friend had told me something that her son says, who is also diabetic. She said, I have diabetes, but it doesn't have me. So, yes, I am an individual with diabetes. You can say I'm a diabetic. I might not like it. I might turn to you and say, I have diabetes, yes. But it's not in control of me. I'm in control of it.
So you don't let it define you?
No.
Well, that's a good thing. I mean, it's not something that you can even help.
No, you just got to roll with it.
Kim, I want to thank you so much for joining us here today on The Brighter Side.
It's nice being here.
You're listening to The Brighter Side on 90.3 WHPC. We thank you for listening.